Should be playing Radio Gaga.
This is Radio Gaga.
Is it? Radio.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the new, super improved, crazy-ass, wild, never-before experienced version of our show, with which you might be familiar, but then again, you might not be, and if you were, this is something different altogether. Ladies and gentlemen, I bring you the newest edition of Midas Letter. Hold it. Wait for it. On three, boys. Ready? Set, let's go!
Yeah.
Midas Letter RAW. Ladies and gentlemen,
What
we're taking this show up to a new level.
That was an introduction.
My special friend here, Special Head Molesky, my special friend.
Special.
Now you're my special friend.
Special Ed.
Anyways, if you can see that we're going for the Joe Rogan look, like, oh, really? He's got microphones? We got microphones. Yeah. He's doing drugs? We got drugs.
We got drugs.
We got drugs. We're on drugs all the time, pretty much. But not prescription drugs. No, naturals. No. Non-synthetic.
Non-synthetic.
Yeah. Anyways, we have a somewhat interesting show lined up. And I say somewhat interesting because the shows are really going to be taking on a new life here pretty quick. And you're going to want to stay tuned for what we got going on. So, first guest today is going to be Dr. Lyle Oberg. He's the CEO of MYND Life Sciences. MYND, in this case, is spelled M-Y-N-D, which, just so happens to be the symbol under which they trade on the Canadian Securities Exchange, MYND. They started trading on May 26th. He is, well, what do you think? What do you think a company called MYND Life Sciences is all about, Ed?
How about things that affect your mind?
Oh! That's just genius. Round of applause for Ed Molesky. Yeah, there we go. Yeah. Oh, okay. Take a bow, Ed. There you go.
Hey, what if I had my head on the microphone?
Well, and you bowed too deeply. And then we have Anthony Tennyson. He's the CEO of a company called, wait a sec, there's a theme recurring here, Awakn Life Sciences. What do you think that company's about, Ed?
Waking up, because you'll sleep a lot. You need to wake up. Crickets.
Yeah. All right. So Anthony Tennyson is going to join us. He's the CEO of Awakn Life Sciences, trades on the NEO under the symbol AWKN, and they just started trading on Thursday, June 23rd.
June 23rd.
Which was yesterday.
Okay.
Yes, but he's going to be on the show today. We did publish the video yesterday, but he's going to be on the show today. Today. And our third guest. I wanted to quickly mention that Awakn Life Sciences, the chairman is George Scorsis. Do you remember George?
Kinda.
George was our buddy.
Yes.
He's been on our show.
Yes.
He's a gentleman and a scholar, and I can't wait to reconnect with George again. In fact, I am going to start buying this stock just by way of disclosure, just because George is the chairman.
Really?
Yeah.
What's the symbol?
AWKN on the NEO.
AWKN?
AWKN.
Awaken.
Wake up. Wake up and taste the mushrooms.
Smell the coffee.
Then our third guest is, are you ready here?
Okay.
David Barthel. He's the CEO of Health Logic Interactive. What do you think that company's about, Ed?
Your health?
Never misses. He's just so whip smart. It's about health, yes. Anyways, those are our three guests today. And they're great interviews, I think, because we have this new system, and so the sound is good, and I wasn't in love with the sound of my own voice before, which a lot of people I know would disagree with out there. Some of them kindly, some less so. And in either case, what is it that Roger Waters told Mark Zuckerberg when he wanted to use his Pink Floyd song in his commercial?
I don't know.
What do you mean you don't know?
I don't know.
You're the one who told me, I thought.
I told you?
Yeah. You said go fuck yourself. Oh, yeah. See, the audience gets it. Here I just build you. I can't stop laughing.
That's Pink Floyd.
Oh, whoa. I told you, this man is not to be trifled with.
Yeah. Yeah.
So our main topic of today's show is going to be cryptocurrencies again. I want to point out that we have been trying to convince you people, you poor crypto kids who are about to get in the most royal way by central banks around the world, that you're about to get by central banks around the world, but we've been saying that for 3 years. And that's not conspiracy theory. This is happening right now. I give you 3 pieces of evidence. Actually, I have to pull this up on the screen. We're going to do this together. So this is live, not Memorex. We're going to punch in central banks cryptocurrency. We're going to click on news here. I draw your attention to item number 2 here. Central banks step up fight against cryptocurrencies. The Bank for International Settlements, which is the central bank for central banks, has come out and said things like cryptocurrencies do not serve the public interests, and central banks need to step up the rollout of their digital currencies to stop cryptocurrencies from causing financial harm. So what happened? The currencies all sold off. There they go. Ladies and gentlemen, watch them fall.
You know, the 2 times China talked about, first of all, they said, you know, we're going to eliminate this, plunge to 30, back to 40.
Let's put up a backdrop of a chart while we're talking about this. And the second
time they said it, which was recently, they're going to get really serious about regulating. It got to 29.5. Now, where are we? 34-ish? 34.
34, 44, 175. It's up, it's down, it's going all around. But look, okay, so it touched a low.
29.5, I think.
28,832.44.
Is that the low?
That's the low on June 22nd, which was Wednesday.
Yeah.
So
second day of summer,
anyways,
by the way.
if you would, I'm not trying to gloat here, and I'm not trying to make out like we're smarter than we actually are, but I invite you to search Midas Letter in cryptocurrencies, and basically this is exactly what we have been warning is going to happen, is that central banks are going to roll out their own digital currencies, and at that point, they will coordinate it with an assault on cryptocurrencies that will undermine their fungibility, their eligibility for inclusion in the monetary system, and this is the first stop on the way to zero. So get ready, people, because you're about to go all the way to the bottom from way up here.
It could take a long time, right? It could take a long time for this to unwind. I think
it could.
For the time being, the range is somewhere between high 30s and low 30s. It's gonna, but when it breaks,
that's where it's trading. Ed, you are a genius. Holy smokes! Are you using technical analysis to write a conclusion?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh!
Send money.
Send money now. We need it badly. I want to draw attention to the fact that our show is sponsored by Voxtur Analytics, trading under the symbol VXTR in Canada, VXTRF in the United States. Voxtur Analytics is redesigning the entire real estate transactional universe, and we say that it's real estate at the speed of light. And I own shares. I also am a participant in an option through another company that is involved with the financial communications of the company's value proposition to investors. So I should be considered conflicted. Anytime I mention Voxtur, think of it as advertising. And why do I have so much advertising options and shares? Because I believe the advertising. Yes, there you have it. Anyways, so Voxtur is our, we'll take a quick look at the Voxtur chart here. Now, I'm going to comment on the press release that came out this week, and this is going to demonstrate my commitment to you, the viewer, that I am not actually beyond calling it as it is, even though I'm under the wing of the company, because I am effectively independent. The chairman announced that he was selling 5 million shares to strategic investors, but he also needed to use some money to buy a house in Tampa because he's moving there to oversee the affairs and the build-out of the company. All of which is fine and dandy. Great explanation for selling 5 million shares. The stock promptly swooned down to 70-some-odd cents, and that's because people don't read beyond the headline. And the headline was, Chairman sells 5 million shares. So, if you haven't yet, take off your hat, fill it up with Voxtur shares. No, I can't say that. That sounds like personal financial advice.
The big spike in volume was that announcement. Is that a fair statement? Is that?
Yes, Ed. That is the plunge.
Yeah.
But so the strategic investors part is interesting. When somebody sells shares in a big block like that, it's an institution buying it who's interested in the long-term prospects of the company. So
Sure.
my interpretation, biased and conflicted though it is that this is ultimately a bullish development for the company, and that I think in the next quarter, when you see what these revenue numbers look like, you will agree that this is just the early stages for a company that is going to redefine.
When are we going to expect the next update on the next quarter?
Well, when was the last quarter?
I don't know. That's why I'm asking
Well, it was
you.
at the end of May. So when would the next quarter be?
End of August.
Ah, geez, I told you, this guy is a genius.
Okay.
You need to give him a round of applause.
We got another, yeah.
There you go. Woohoo! So not only do we have new audio equipment, which I'm sure you're enjoying out there and might even be getting somewhat annoyed about. I'm getting annoyed at the sound of my own voice at this point. But we've also moved to an office just above Times Square, where we now are able to go out for lunch.
There we are.
There we go, right there. That's
there,
me on the bike.
yeah.
That's me getting to work. Oh, I just had to yell at that girl. She tried to kick me. But soon up here, there's going to be Midas Letter over here. Midas Letter goes public.
Midas Letter Square.
Midas Letter on NASDAQ. Wow. Hey, and by the way, we're launching our new cryptocurrency, the Midas coin. It's free.
It's free.
It's free, but it's a unit of currency. There. Now I'm not in trouble with any regulators. Also, we want to talk about GMG put out a press release. On this show, we talk our book. That's basically why we're here.
Yes.
So Graphene Manufacturing Group came out with a press release actually this morning indicating that they were joining a group. Actually, I shouldn't try to paraphrase because I actually only got to catch the headline. Let's see, where is it here?
Yeah,
there it is. The press release is GMG joins Future Battery Industry Cooperative Research Center for Battery Electrolyte Development. That is a mouthful. Whatever it is, it must be good news because it's such a mouthful. No, but we don't really know anything about this this group, so we can't comment on it. But just another corporate development indicative of the company's future as a major player in the battery space, and that's what I think the opportunity is inherent in GMG.
Sure.
Full disclosure, I do own shares. I don't own options, nor are we paid by the company. But we are working on changing that because who else is going to tell the story better than us?
Stock's up nicely on that news, by the way.
Well, exactly.
Yeah.
So, stock's up, stock's down. Let's take a look at the chart. Why don't we? GMG, here we go.
There you are. It's right there.
Wow.
Yeah.
240. Look at that little jump. After drifting sideways a little bit here. Now, that brings up the next bit of conversation. We're going to talk about the phenomenon known as sell in May and fuck off.
Yeah.
Which is sell in May and go away. And there's this old little piece of wisdom out there that says, come May, expect markets to lighten up, and you should probably plan to not be trading because volume is light. I find that the sell in May, go away thing is for like old people.
Yes.
Because
would that be me?
Well, sorry. Actually, I'm not too far behind you.
Yeah.
How old do you think you are? You don't look a day over 70.
I thought I did look a day over 69.
Okay, well.
So looking at the chart, obviously we've had a big correction from the $4 sort of top, got down to just under 2, and now we're back to that 220, 240. We need to stay there, I think. Only because it's around half, 40% correction from the top. As long as we stay there, we're fine.
Yeah, I find it interesting that volume has been lightening up as we move through June here.
Yeah,
but
for sure.
Yeah. Ed, do you find yourself depressed very often?
That depends.
Really?
I'm only depressed when I'm not happy.
That's a funny thing about depression.
Yeah, well, depression usually talks about looking backwards, back to your past. You get depressed about all the stupid things you've done. You don't get depressed about tomorrow.
Right.
Because it's an unknown.
Well, that's why I drink so much. I have no memory of anything that happened yesterday. And so there's no bad news. It's all good news because it's all in the future.
Well, I often said, if you didn't have a memory, maybe life would be a lot simpler.
Well, it would be simpler. Everybody you'd meet, you'd be meeting them for the first time.
Like
new
who?
people every day.
Who?
Me.
What's your name?
I don't know. I can't remember. No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
Anyways, what I was trying to get at, Ed, was people who are depressed now have a plant science option as an alternative to the synthetic drug option.
Okay.
And the plant science option is
mushrooms?
well, there is a component in a certain type of mushrooms called psilocybin.
Psilocybin.
And colloquially referred to as psilocybin. Anyways, the psilocybin, Dr. Lyle Oberg has a business that is going to be bringing us psilocybin as a remedy for depression. And we'll let him tell you about that because I keep screwing up the story.
All right. Let's hear it.
Hey there, Midas Letter subscribers, viewers, traders, and investors. My guest right now is Dr. Lyle Oberg. He's the CEO of MYND Life Sciences. Mr. Oberg, welcome to our show.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, so let's start with an overview. What is the business of MYND Life Sciences?
Well, what we are a company who is exploring the anti-inflammatory benefits of psilocybin and other psychedelics as they apply to depression and other CNS disorders. We've managed over a period of about 10 years to discover the pathway that actually turns the body from an inflammatory state to an anti-inflammatory state, essentially utilizing a trigger. We also found that psilocybin is what can work on that trigger, and that's what we're looking into.
Psilocybin. So this is interesting because I've noticed that there are increasing numbers of companies exploring psilocybin as a treatment for various mental health conditions. It seems like depression is a big one. And as I always like to tell all of my guests, that I view my general sunny disposition and outlook on life to a pretty assiduous exploration of the psychedelic realm as a teenager and young man. So tell me,
you were an explorer.
I was a psychonaut of the first order. I can assure you, yes. LSD, THC, MDA, you name it. But that was on a recreational basis. I think the side effect was that, it basically caused you to hit the reset button in your own mind and your self-awareness and perception. It gives you the ability to sort of perceive yourself from a third-party perspective, which allows you to see where you're worrying needlessly, worrying about things you can't change, ignoring the things that matter. So I think that psychedelics have a great place in the future of mental health. Tell me, how is Mind Health starting to incorporate this? How do patients come to you? What is the process?
Sure. So we've actually gone beyond the hallucinatory side of things, and we are actually concentrating on how these psychedelics actually work in the brain. And when you go back probably 3 or 4 years, the theory of depression is changing quite substantially. You're now seeing depression as an inflammatory state, a neuroinflammatory state in the brain. And psilocybin and the psychedelics work as being anti-inflammatory. So it may well be that the hallucinogenic component that you're talking about is more of a side effect than the actual benefit. And the benefit is probably from the anti-inflammatory effect, which is what we're looking at. We've identified, for example, the trigger, as I mentioned, that turns you from a pro-inflammatory state to an anti-inflammatory state. And all of this has already been studied in animal models. So quite literally, you have a depressed mouse that is not eating and is not doing mazes. You stimulate this particular gene and he runs around in the mazes, eats, all of these things. So we're taking that research, and obviously there's a ton more, but we're doing that research and applying it to the human body and the humans. And the results we've been having have been amazing. Yeah.
Okay, so what is the status of this? I mean, are you strictly clinical research then? Or are you developing a protocol or a treatment for humans? How's the business going to evolve?
Yeah, so what we're doing is we're getting into clinical trials. So we're in the preclinical phase right now. We expect to be out of that by fourth quarter of this year, first quarter of next year. We're already planning 4 trials. We're looking at sepsis, we're looking at COVID storm, or cytokine storm, sorry. We're looking at depression, and we're looking at our biomarker. So the biomarker is a really interesting component because up until now, depression was diagnosed by essentially your symptoms. So on what's called a DSM-5, if you have 5 of 8 symptoms, you're depressed. What we're now saying then, if depression is caused by inflammation, we can quantify and qualify that inflammation and let you know, first of all, diagnosis, but probably more importantly is monitor it. So establish your baseline. As you go down, you get worse. As you go up, you get better, that type of thing. So we're doing that as well. And then the third component of this, we just signed a licensing agreement to actually do a vaccine, get this, a vaccine against depression, against the inflammatory processes. You know, a little bit Star Trek-ish, but on the other hand, when you have a physical cause, that's where we are in healthcare in 2021.
Wow, that is fascinating. That is fascinating. So how long until these treatments are going to be available to people who are suffering from, you know, things like depression?
Well, we'll be into our clinical or into our phase 2 trials probably first quarter, second quarter of next year. So within a year, we'll be well accelerated into it. The nice thing about 2021 is that the clinical trials, the way that they are being done now is actually considerably faster. So we expect to have a drug out from our leading candidates probably mid next year.
Fascinating. That's really interesting. Then is this a case where there's going to be a long period of investment and reinvestment before you're able to generate revenue?
We hope not. First of all, from our biomarker, we expect to be on a revenue generation first quarter of next year because a biomarker obviously does not have to go through the same tests that a drug has to. So we will have that up and going the first quarter of next year. And again, the biomarker is as a simple dry blood test. So it's not as though you have to go to a complicated laboratory. You can actually just do the dry blood test and send it in. And we use a mass spectrometer to analyze it. So it's that will be a pathway to revenue sooner as opposed to later. We think because of all the research that we've already done on psilocybin and the psilocybin analogs, that we'll hopefully be in a revenue position within a couple of years. We want to accelerate this. The information that we have shows that this could be a potentially, life-saving drug kind of thing, and we want to make sure it gets out as quickly as we can.
Sure.
The other point to make on this, sorry, just one other point, is we're doing this research at the University of British Columbia. So this is not being done in some Caribbean country or anything like that. It's at UBC, one of the most renowned universities, certainly in Canada, and probably in the top 20 or 30 in the world. And that means a lot. It means a lot, especially as you go before the regulators, as you go before the FDA, all of these things. So we're hoping that can accelerate us going through.
Mm-hmm. So then the regulators and the regulatory environment that is necessary for you to advance these products and these protocols, is it something that you're finding is the government's increasingly taking a proactive, this is a benefit, not a threat kind of position to these things, which is completely opposite of what it's been for the last 20 years. So what has changed in the regulatory environment?
Well, from our point of view, we haven't had a problem at all in the regulatory environment. We've got 38 what are called Section J exemptions, which means we can study 38 different analogs of psilocybin. And contextually, there's probably 45 of these licenses in Canada, and we have 38 of them. So we're not having a problem at all with the regulatory side. I think on a general rule, you're starting to see more and more patients that are being approved. A lot of them are essentially palliative care. but you are seeing a more open attitude from Health Canada, and I think that's really, really positive. I think, though, the key to all of this and the key to psychedelics is you're going to have to know how they work. If you want to go through an FDA analysis, it just isn't enough to say, well, people are getting better. You need to show how they work. And that's the advantage that our company has, is that we know how they work. We know the how and why they work. And that's what we're going to be moving forward with. So we'll be able to build a full case for the FDA and Health Canada.
Sure. For interested parties, do you publish your information on your website by any chance?
Yeah, absolutely. All our press releases are on our website. Obviously, we're a publicly traded company, so we can't put all of our secrets out on the website. But as they're announced, they're certainly being put on our website, and I would encourage people to follow it.
Yeah, sure. So I'm more interested in the clinical data and the how and why it works aspect. Having experienced it extensively, I have my own ideas about how and why it works, but those are very much based on experience and not at all data. So I'm curious to see how my belief in how things work with the psychedelics actually compares to how they actually work in the science. And so that's why I asked that. I don't imagine you publish that in press releases.
We haven't yet, but we certainly will be showing all of that, showing exactly how it works. We've coined the phrase human mycogene, for example. We've got 4 patents out right now, and we're slowly starting to leak that information out as we're able to under the Public Securities Commission. So we're in a really good position at this point. And again, it's the kind of thing that we're going to build a fulsome case to be able to take through to the FDA as quickly as possible.
You bet. Dr. Lyle Oberg, I thank you for your time today. A very interesting story. We're going to follow up with interest in due course. I appreciate your time today.
Thank you very much.
You bet. Bye for now. So intriguing, the former finance minister of Alberta is now advancing therapeutic use of psychedelics for depression.
Wow.
Yeah, I find that fascinating. There's a chart. We're looking at the chart right now. It just started trading in May.
In May? In
May, yeah. Now, the interesting thing, I'm looking at the chart here, and if people wanted to look for an entry point, I have this to say. They raised $2.4 million at 30 cents a share.
Right.
The hold comes off in about another 3 months.
Yeah, that only is now. What chart is that? It only looks like about 5 days of action there.
Well, that's you're looking at the 1 day. So May 26th, it started trading.
Yeah,
came out at 250.
Yeah,
closed the day at 215.
And this was a 30-cent deal.
Yeah, they only did $15,000 worth at a nickel, which is impressive.
$15,000.
Yeah, yeah. So these guys did not use and abuse, rape and pillage the retail shareholder right out of the chute before they even went public, like most companies do. These guys actually raised most of the money at the early stage at 30 cents a share. But when a stock's trading at $2 and you've got something coming out that costs 30 cents in 3 or 4 months, guess where that stock price is going, barring a miracle?
Yeah.
It's going to 30 cents. So I'm not making a prediction. I'm just saying that I wouldn't be a buyer of this until we got close up to that day. If it starts rocking in the other direction, like if it blows through 250 and keeps on going, then it has a good chance that come 4 months plus 1 day from the finance closing, it might actually continue going if they bring in the right investors and everything and have the right promoters on side and everything. Right. Not that I'm saying that's us, but, you know.
You got to look at the total shares outstanding always, right, to see what's the market cap, because one thing for certain, if the market cap gets crazy, nobody cares anymore. If it gets to a certain number, it just can't keep getting bigger, bigger, and bigger. But this is a hot space. I mean, 30-cent deal, and it hits 250 on the first day. Come on.
Yep.
Duh.
Yep. Duh.
What's wrong with that? Nothing
wrong with that. Anyways, so we were talking about Bitcoin, and I was trying to make the case that the allowance of Bitcoin to reach these astronomical levels without any regulatory interference is part and parcel of a plan by the management behind the scenes of the global financial system to lure all of you poor little crypto kids in for your inaugural, let's call it sphincter reconstruction. Training, another way to say it.
Training, toilet training.
Yes, and yes,
Get ready.
despite the fact that you can program your own money, it's very important for you to understand that you will never be allowed to have your money as legal tender because it's the purview of governments. And you might think that this is a new day and you guys are going to change the world, but I have sorry, sad news for you. The world is under control of a small group of billionaires, and they control the decisions that are made by governments, and you will never be allowed to program your own cryptocurrency and let it actually rip and replace all of the existing sovereign bank-backed currencies. So if you've got any left, be a good lad and sell it while you still can. Get yourself some fiat currency and get ready to buy that instead. Woo! Yes, no doubt. No matter what, you're getting continuously wealth transferred by the financial management situation. And yeah, that's why we don't show up in search results in Google. That's why we don't have more followers, is because Google, in cooperation with the financial forces that be, makes sure that our message does never have the mantle of credibility that a large audience gives it.
Right.
That's why Joe Rogan has a huge audience. He never says anything really meaningful or detrimental to the status quo. Whereas if we actually had this huge audience believing what we were saying, well, they'd have to kill us. But fortunately, I'll take the low audience and be able to continue to, analyze the situation as we see it.
Well, look at it this way. If you didn't have any audience, you could say whatever you want.
Nobody'd be listening.
Nobody would be listening.
If a tree falls in the forest, does anybody hear it?
Well, that's a good question.
Well, it depends what you mean by anybody.
Anybody.
If there was a tree in the forest, there would be multiple organisms around with hearing. They're not necessarily anybody's, but they're anythings, and yes, they would hear it.
Really?
Well, I would think, if they had ears.
Like deer, for instance.
Unless they were deaf. You can have ears and be deaf.
Yes.
Or deers are quiet, though.
They're very quiet.
Is the plural of deer deers or deer?
Deer.
You sure?
Yes.
Why'd you say deers? Freudian slip?
Did I say deers? Yes. I didn't say deers. Did I?
Oh, my God. The audience think that's hilarious. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Our next guest is David Barthel. He's the CEO of HealthLogic Interactive. And that company trades on the OTC under the symbol CHYPF and on the TSX Venture under SCHIP.H. What does the .H mean, Edward?
.H means, I think it was basically a shell, and now it's moving from a shell status to...
Oh, so it's in the process of evolving.
Yeah,
okay.
Evolution.
Anyways, this is a great story. The CEO, David Barthel, sold his last company to Medtronic, MDT, on NASDAQ. Go check that out if you want to see what might be in the cards for this company.
So this guy knows what he's doing.
Well, we'll see. Let's let him tell us. David, here's David now. G'day there, Midas Letter subscribers, viewers, traders, and investors. My guest right now is David Barthel. He's the CEO of HealthLogic Interactive, trading on the OTC under the symbol CHYPF, and in Toronto under the symbol CHIP.H. David, welcome.
Happy to be here, James. Thank you.
David, let's start with the required overview. What is the business of HealthLogic Interactive?
We are an early stage development and commercialization company focused on specifically chronic kidney disease, but more importantly, developing a point-of-care lab-on-chip digital diagnostic for screening and diagnosing chronic kidney disease. And why is that so critical? Number one, chronic kidney disease is a rapidly progressive disease that historically has been difficult to diagnose and treat. The current diagnostic tests are laboratory tests where you have to go to the laboratory, take a test, you have to wait, sometimes you have to go back. Often the test is inaccurate, it's costly, and does not provide a quantitative measurement for you. So we are providing a point of care, but more importantly, it's really a lab on a chip. So it's very interesting technology. This is disruptive, dynamic, innovative technology. And think about a credit card, James, that you can take biomarker measurements on. Right. It's the size of a credit card, and you would then be able to measure biomarkers on the chip. You would then place the chip into a handheld device that takes measurements, and then the device would then take the measurements and then move the data to your smartphone, to an app on your smartphone. So from our investors that are listening, this kind of hits all the key hot areas right now. You've got point of care, you've got a lab on a chip, and you've got the digital conductivity, the digital healthcare play of it as well. So we're really combining three major components into one what will eventually be a Class 2 medical device. That'll
Wow.
be a diagnostic for chronic kidney disease.
Okay, so the obvious benefit to humanity is that people suffering from chronic kidney disease are going to have the equivalent of 24/7 monitoring of vital signs to let the patient know if they need to increase medication, do anything else to keep themselves in good shape.
Yeah, basically what it does is it bridges a very wide screening gap, because historically it's difficult, and because of COVID-19, which has really escalated the need for point of care technology, point of care diagnostics, is that it's difficult for people, especially in rural communities, or even, think globally, think about other countries, that it's difficult for them to get to a lab. So wouldn't it be great if we could do true point of care, which is, translated for us is really having the patient at home with the ability to collect and manage their data. So we're going to bridge the screening gap, number one. Number two, we're going to bring the lab to the home. So that's really the value proposition of this, is that we're going to bring the lab to the home to provide earlier diagnosis, which leads to earlier therapy. So that's a very, very important value proposition for people that suffer from chronic kidney disease, because they don't get diagnosed. 90% of these people that have the symptoms don't know they have the disease. So you have this unaddressable, unmet market, and we want to get to those people.
Sure. So I'd imagine this would be of great interest to the medical insurance industry in North America, in that it obviously is going to be a cheaper approach to diagnostics and care.
Low cost, accessibility, okay, and a quantitative measurement, which means precision, which means accuracy. Lab tests are often colorimetric dipsticks, which just give you a range. This will give you an actual value. So when you think about risk analysis, risk prediction, risk management, we're going to be able to do that. We'll be able to show some trend analysis and some historical figures as well, all on an app on your smartphone.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so then how soon until this is actually available?
Good question. So because we're early stage, and because it is a medical device, as you know, we have to get Health Canada approval. We need to get CE in Europe, but more importantly, we need to get FDA approval in the US. So our time frame is that we're planning on having a pre-submission meeting with the FDA in September. We'll do some human factor testing towards the end of this year, beginning of next year. We'll start a clinical trial in January. Hope to submit, several months later. And our goal is to get FDA approval towards Q4 of next year, 2022. And that's the first device. This is a platform technology. So we're going to be looking at measuring specific biomarkers. We're looking at two specific biomarkers for what we call MATLOCK1, which will be albumin and the creatinine ratio, which are important for screening. Those are the standard biomarkers for screening for CKD. And then the following year, we'll come out with a product called MATLOCK2, which will be a fully integrated diagnostic for not only albumin and creatinine in urine, but we'll add blood-based GFR. So those are the things that we're going to be doing. Very specific biomarkers that give you the complete detailed package for diagnosing chronic kidney disease.
Sure. How much is it going to cost you to get through the through to the FDA end zone? Have you got the capital on hand to do that, or you're going to need to raise some more funds?
We've got capital. We're going to need to raise more funds. And, with an early stage company, someone who asked me once, well, how often do you raise capital? I said, I raise it every day. Right. Because you really do. And you base it on milestones, and you base it on your business plan and the leadership team. That we've got an excellent team in place. So we're in the process of raising capital, and it takes, it'll take $1 million, to do everything that we want to do, at least to get to that point. There's other things that we want to do because it's a platform technology. We're developing a digital marketing strategy. There's a number. We've got about 11 different initiatives, James, going on at one time.
Right. And this is not your first rodeo when it comes to smart technology applied to healthcare, is it?
No, it's not. I did a product called Smart Pill, which was a disruptive, innovative, ingestible capsule that took sensor measurements throughout the GI tract, and it took a while to get that through the approval, but we did it all the way through clinical trials, FDA approval. Even we're able to get a reimbursement code in the U.S., and then we sold the business to Medtronic. So we did everything you need to do to develop a medical device. So this one, I'm even more excited because I think the need is greater, and it really is a global need because the population is diverse. 45% of CKD patients are diabetics, but more importantly, it's a diverse global problem. and we believe that we have a global solution for it.
Sure. Is the idea then to develop this technology that might ultimately be acquired by a large medical devices firm like Medtronic?
It could be. It could be. You never manage to sell it. You manage it for growth. So
Right.
if you do the opposite, you get way ahead of yourself. So we're following a very disciplined process, a very targeted focus on what we want to accomplish. We've been approached about looking at other biomarkers, but right now we're very focused on getting CKD done, completing this. After we get this finished, we're successful, we'll start to look at other biomarkers. And the key here to mention to your audience, specifically in Canada, is that this is a Canadian technology originating out of the University of Manitoba. And there's tremendous technology being developed not only out of the University of Manitoba in Winnipeg, but in Canada itself. So we've got a great partner at the University of Manitoba, and the lab on the chip is a patented technology that was developed out of there. So my goal as CEO is to put all the pieces together. We've got a real strong team. We've got a great CMO, a great CFO. I've got a great clinical team. So we're putting all the pieces together, and I'm a firm believer in utilizing strategic partners and eventually having multiple revenue channels.
Sure. Are there any existing lab on a chip sort of applications that are in use today?
There are, not specifically for chronic kidney disease and not using microfluidic technology, which is we're doing. We've got some proprietary things that we're doing differently. So there's nothing on the market like this lab on the chip. There's nothing that measures these biomarkers that we're doing. There's nothing that's utilizing a lab on chip to diagnose chronic kidney disease. So we'll be the first, what they'll call the first market mover.
Okay. And is there a lot of IP around this technology?
Yes, a lot of IP. We're developing a lot of IP. We've got a lot of IP being developed around it. So we'll have a strong fence, if you will, around not only the initial product, but the products going forward.
Right. All right, David, well, that's a great introduction. We're going to follow the story with extreme interest. Thanks very much for your time today.
Happy, James. Happy to do it.
You
Excited.
Bet. Bye for now. Yeah, so there's the uplifting effect that David has on companies he's involved with. So 49 cents, still got an H on it, which means it's NEX listed, which means it's not fully reinstated on the TSX Venture, which is probably where it's going to go. But again, he sold his last company to Medtronic.
Big money?
Well, big money. Big. What is big? What are the first two letters of the word big?
BI.
And what's the second two letters of the word
Million.
Mick?
CK. Bic.
So put it all together for me. BI blank
CK.
blank blank CK. Oh, Jesus, Edward, you're disgusting. Really? Can we just have a normal show for once? Oh, my God. Well, if I was the central bank, cartel behind the central banks, the richest families in the world, the Rothschilds, the Rockefellers, et cetera, whispering in the ears of central bankers saying, here's what you do, then I would say, you know what? Let it rip up to $100,000 so we can drag in the last suckers and really paint this tape so that when we take this thing apart, they're going to be begging for us to come in and regulate digital currencies, and then we can roll out our central bank digital currencies, and everybody will say, finally, a digital bank currency we can trust.
I think that there's a dilemma here, because if you let this crypto thing unravel, it's going to cause such a hurt to the investors that are in.
Well, that's because
I think they're trying to keep it up to some degree, don't you think? Like,
keep it up? The splintered
everybody
broomstick?
wants to keep it up.
Yeah.
No,
Keep
at the
it
end
up
of the
for
day,
as long as you can.
But think about if this thing were to go down to, say, a 10,000 right now. Think of the damage, the collateral damage that's done to just about everything else.
Well, I don't think that would happen.
I don't know.
What's the total value of all cryptocurrencies being traded right now?
I think it's somewhere between $1 trillion and $2 trillion.
Exactly. Nothing.
Peanuts?
Drop in the bucket. During the collapse of the tech bubble in 2000, the total annihilation of invested money was deemed to be $5 trillion.
Yeah, but that was when there was a lot less money.
Well, yeah. Well, that's just it. So like $1 trillion now is not what $1 trillion was in 2000. And so $1 trillion now.
What do they say? The total value of everything in the world is what, about 60 trillion?
I think the number
I don't know.
was...
It's not 100 trillion.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to say that without actually doing the research.
You know.
But yeah, but the point is that this is fabricated money. Not that central bank money isn't fabricated, but the country has an obligation to stand behind the debt represented by each unit of its currency. Unlike a cryptocurrency, which is decentralized, but the downside of that is it's like if it goes to zero, if you accept $10 of cryptocurrency for a $10 payment and the cryptocurrency goes to zero, who are you going to complain to? You're going to call the cops? The cop's going to say, you stupid kid, you took the cryptocurrency and you spent it, and now you're crying the blues because your cereal's built in your lap. But so this is the last time. We promise we won't harp on this every time cryptocurrency loses $10,000 on its way to zero, but please get out of cryptocurrency, at least reduce your exposure, because if you're all in on cryptocurrency, you're going to be all on the ground in, I'm going to call it about 18 months. Because they've already started rolling out the digital central bank currencies. China is the first country to bar cryptocurrency mining.
Turkey said no. Yeah. Let's talk Turkey. Anybody want to talk Turkey?
How do we get Turkey into the mix here all of a sudden?
Because Turkey apparently has come out and said negative things about
cryptocurrencies.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but not El Salvador.
What did you sent me an interesting piece here on WhatsApp, which I thought was quite hilarious because Nassim Tayeb, who was the author of The Black Swan, who was credited with the guy who saw the Black Swan coming, despite the fact that all of us Google marginalized writers were pointing it out for years before he came along and opened his big yard.
There's always a black swan coming, but we don't know what it is until it happens, and then...
But you just said it was a black swan.
Is it a black...
Well, if you know it's a black swan...
Yeah.
It's a... What?
Is it a black swan?
It's always a black swan. It's never a white swan. White swan's good news.
Yeah.
Did you know that all the swans in countries that were formerly affiliated with the Commonwealth are officially the property of the Queen?
Really?
The Queen owns the swans. Yeah. I find that really cool. It's like you're not allowed to kill a swan anywhere. Like you can't hunt them, you can't eat them. Swans are protected.
Right.
Because they belong to the Queen.
Well, let's just,
carry on.
Carry on.
Anyways, our next guest is going to contemplate the treatment of addictions in the UK and Europe using drugs, which they don't consider them drugs, as he points out in the interview. But I'll let him do the talking because he knows so much more about this stuff than I do. Anthony Tennyson is the CEO of Awakn Life Sciences. George Scorsese is the chairman. Hey there, Midas Letter subscribers, viewers, traders, and investors. My guest right now is Anthony Tennyson. He's the CEO of Awakn Life Sciences, trading on NEO under the symbol AWKN. Anthony, welcome.
Thank you very much. It's an absolute pleasure to be here to get the opportunity to speak to you and your viewers. I'm really grateful.
Yeah, great. Same here. Tell me, what is the business model of Awakn?
So the business model of Awakn is to develop the next generation of psychedelic drugs, therapies, and enabling technologies to better treat addiction. And we do two things, and it's real simple. We develop and we deliver. We develop the next generation of psychedelic drugs, therapies, and enabling technologies to better treat addiction. And we deliver those therapies and those technologies in clinics that we will own and operate across the UK and the EU. So it's real simple: development and delivery of psychedelic medicine to better treat addiction. And the reason that we're focused on addiction is it's actually one of the most significant unmet medical needs of modern times. About 15 to 20% of the US, UK, EU, and Canadian population are affected by one type of addiction or another, be it a substance addiction like alcohol or a behavioral addiction like gambling. And there hasn't been an innovation in the addiction treatment industry for many, many years. So we're seeking to change that paradigm and to provide hope for people who are stuck in the cycle of addiction, hope for their families and for their communities.
Sure. It's a knee-jerk reaction would be how counterintuitive it must seem to use drugs to treat addiction if you were to consider the psychedelic substances drugs. So what is the difference between an addictive substance and the drug that you would use to treat the addiction?
So that response is understandable. We view them as medicines, not drugs. So about 70% of addiction and mental health issue has trauma as a common and contributing factor. And the current treatment methodologies for both mental health and addiction are not always effective at treating that trauma. The current, the psychiatry model, by prescribing and sending people home, it just suppresses the symptoms, but it never solves the root cause trauma. And psychology, it's just talk therapy. And if the trauma is significant enough, one of two things will happen. The client will either clam up and won't want to talk about it, or they'll walk out the door. So we believe psychedelics are uniquely positioned to change that paradigm, and they provide a space for the therapist and the client to together work through the trauma that is leading to the addictive behaviors being exhibited. And there's an emerging body of evidence that proves and will prove that psychedelics and psychedelic-assisted psychotherapy is better, potentially, at treating addiction than current treatment methodologies. Our team, Dr. Ben Sessa, Dr. Laurie Higbed, and Professor David Nutt, led the world's only clinical trial for MDMA for alcohol use disorder. Results were published earlier on this year, and their early efficacy shows a 20% relapse after 9 months for using MDMA-assisted psychotherapy to treat alcohol use disorder. That stacks up against a 70% relapse rate after 12 months as standard across the world for alcohol use disorder for a condition that affects 5% of the population. Mm-hmm. Similarly, we're about to see published the output from a phase 2A and B trial for ketamine for alcohol use, ketamine-assisted psychotherapy for alcohol use disorder that was run by Professor Celia Morgan, who works with us, and that will potentially show that ketamine-assisted psychotherapy was also more effective at treating alcohol use disorder. So, in our opinion, we believe these represent the next wave of innovation on how to treat addiction. And there's research evidence that now shows these are more effective than the current treatment industry. So I know it's counterintuitive, but it's actually been proved in research to be more effective.
Sure. So you're in the development stage of this company. You haven't got clinics operating yet, but that's what you're doing.
Correct. So we do two things. We do development and we do delivery. On the development side, we've got 3 core work streams. We've got an immediate term goal, which is to deliver ketamine-assisted psychotherapy for alcohol use disorder. And we've acquired the IP from that clinical trial I mentioned. Medium-term goal is to run clinical trials to seek to secure marketing authorization in the UK and the EU for MDMA for alcohol use disorder. And long-term, it's about developing our own molecules and medicines to treat alcohol, opioid, tobacco, and behavioral addictions. That's on the development side. And you're correct. On the delivery side, we're aiming to open up clinics across the UK and the EU. UK, EU, 400 million people. We'll have 3 clinics open in the UK this year, another 6 clinics in the UK and Ireland next year, before we then move into continental Europe the year after and the year after that. Aiming to have 20 clinics across the UK and the EU, delivering what we develop in our development work streams. And each one of our clinics is capable of producing between 3 and 6 million Canadian in revenue.
That's impressive. Who pays for the treatment in these clinic environments? Is this something like, for example, the NIH would pay for in the UK?
That's a great question. So currently, because neither ketamine is not approved by the UK state for the treatment of addictions or mental health disorders, it's out-of-pocket payment. So individuals have to pay for this out of their disposable income. That is not a great position. It's not what we want. What we want is we want to help as many people as possible, as many families as possible, as many communities as possible. And in order to do that, we need to run our methodologies, our therapies, and our drugs through to pivotal trials in both the UK and the EU. And that's what's great about our business, is the fact that we do development and we're running the trials and we do delivery. And so that's why we're running our research programs, including clinical trials, in order that we can get state support for what we want to do, and ideally then get the NHS to support us and the insurance markets to support us. But right now, it's out-of-pocket payment for individuals.
Mm-hmm. Do you do all the research in your own environment? Do you have any sort of participation by the academic community?
Well, what we have is we've partnered with some of the world's leading companies. For our drug discovery program, we've partnered with Evotec. Evotec is one of the world's leading drug discovery companies with a long history of successful drug discovery and drug development on central nervous system conditions, particularly focused on the serotonin supporter system in the brain. And we've partnered with them for our drug discovery program, which Professor David Nutt, who is the global authority in this industry, he's running and overseeing that program for us. And then on the clinical trial perspective, or clinical trial workstream, which is our medium-term workstream for MDMA to treat alcohol use disorder, we've partnered with PRA Health Services, or Health Sciences, I beg your pardon. Again, one of the world's leading contract research or clinical research organizations. And then from an academic perspective, we've got some of the smartest minds working for us, with Professor David Nutt, who also continues to hold a chair in Imperial University, and Professor Celia Morgan, who's co-head of the Department of Psychology in the University of Exeter. And then on our scientific advisory board, we've got some of the best people going, with Ben, David, Celia, and also Annie and Michael Mithofer from MAPS, who were the principal investigators on all of MAPS's phase 2 studies, and Matt Johnson from Johns Hopkins Universities. So, we've got a great network of world-leading partners and world-leading academics.
Mm-hmm. Wow, fantastic. So how does the revenue picture scale for the company from the investor perspective over the next 3 years?
Yeah, so look, it's a bit of a, it's early stages for us to be committing to revenue numbers, but each clinic that we own and operate will generate between 3 and 6 million Canadian top line. So we've got 3 clinics going to open this year. We're not going to get a full year worth of run rate on them because it's opening in Q4. But by next year, we would aim to be producing, over 10 million Canadian in revenue.
Wow, that's substantial for a development stage company. When did you get started, and who are the earliest investors in this idea?
That's a great question. So we got started on this company last year, early last year. Myself and the 2 other co-founders, John Held and George Scorsese. And then we brought Dr. Ben Sessa in as a co-founder and as our chief medical officer. And Ben brought with him a very, very experienced team. So although we only established the company last year, through the team that we've brought in, both on an advisory basis and an employee basis, we've actually got a very, very long history going back many, many years. And some of the lead investors, well, look, we've got high net worth individuals who came in with us on an early stage basis, and then we've got some of the leading psychedelic investment firms who came in our latter rounds, including, amongst others, Palo Santo, JLS, etc. And we've been really, really exceptionally well supported by our advisors in Canaccord, 8 Capital, and Stifel, who helped us through the last round, the current round.
Mm-hmm. Okay, fantastic. I'm curious, Anthony, does the regulatory environment in Europe and the UK, is it more or less on equal footing with what's happening in the United States and Canada? Are they sort of the same, or is one way ahead of the other in certain areas? What's sort of is it the same thing, or is it different?
Hello, that's another great question. These are really good questions. Thank you very much. The regulatory environment, so we're particularly interested in MDMA and ketamine. They're our preferred compounds, in addition to what we're looking to develop ourselves. Mm-hmm. And the regulatory environment for MDMA is the same in the UK and the EU as it is in most of the rest of the world. MDMA is a Schedule 1 compound. Where a ketamine, it's a Schedule 2 compound in the UK, and it's between Schedule 2 and Schedule 3 across the EU. And so what that means for us is it means we can deliver ketamine-assisted psychotherapy as soon as we open our clinics, because each one of our clinics is led by a consultant-level psychiatrist. And in the UK and the EU, senior experienced doctors are permitted to prescribe ketamine off-label.
Mm-hmm. So is the treatment of mental disorders like alcohol addiction going to be the exclusive purview of mental health professionals, doctors of psychiatry, et cetera?
So certainly from our perspective, we view the delivery side of our business as being a medical practice.
Right.
And each one of our clinics is led by a consultant level psychiatrist. People who come in to our service, we will be providing our medical leaders in each clinic will be conducting a triage session with them to confirm that what we are providing is a good fit for them. And one of the key assessments that they will make is, have these individuals or have these potential clients tried other treatments before? So are they treatment resistant? So it's very important for us. We're not an elective service. We're not a wellness retreat. And I'm not criticizing people that are, but for us, it's a medical service that we're providing, delivered by medical practitioners, psychiatrists and psychologists.
Mm-hmm. All right, Anthony. Well, that's great. It's a really fascinating story. We're going to follow with interest. We'll come back to you soon to see how you're making out. I really appreciate your time. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you very much for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you.
You bet. Same for me. Bye for now. Yeah, so very intriguing, the idea of using psychedelics to treat addiction. But I can't wait to see what George and crew do with this company. That should be really intriguing. George was much of the talent behind Afria, one could argue, and also behind some other companies. But yes, let's just say that this is not his first rodeo. So one of the things we have to talk about, because we talk about it every week, and the reason we talk about it is because we're so invested in it, and that's commodities. And the price of lumber has halved since we were here last. There's the chart for lumber. Random lengths, current contract, month in front. This is the day-by-day look.
That's
now trading at 888 after touching a low here on June 17th, 1 week ago, of 834.
Yeah. And hit what was the high? 1,700, 1,600?
The high was here on May 10th. It touched an intra-session high of 1734.30.
Yeah. So it's cut in half.
Yeah. So the price of lumber at the commodity desk has cut in half. Do you know what the price of lumber has gone down by at the hardware store?
Nothing.
Well,
they are hung.
Yeah.
They can't sell that lumber without losing money.
Right. Yeah.
What are they going to do?
Well, so here's the interesting thing. I was going to run this by the head of the lumber desk at Home Hardware and say, well, why don't you blow out the lumber you got at today's prices? Because you'll be selling all the lumber. You'll be able to buy back the lumber you just sold at cheaper prices. You're going to take the hit on the spread that you made for that lumber, but you're going to make it up on the volume you're going to do because you're the first one out the gate selling cheap lumber, demonstrating that you are to be trusted, unlike your competitors.
Right.
Like, it would be a brilliant marketing scheme, a brilliant PR scheme.
Right.
I'm going to call him. That's it. Should I get him on the phone right now?
Well, I don't know.
I don't know the gentleman, but if he was my friend, I would call him and suggest that.
So lumber gets cut in half, but about copper only went down 15%.
Right.
15%, not half.
Right.
Now, is that because it takes 10 years to put up a copper mine, whereas lumber, you can just grow a few more trees?
Yeah, well,
I don't think you can just grow
that's a good point.
Well,
the time it takes for copper to be produced in the Earth's crust, or not produced, but found in the Earth's crust, because it's actually produced by the stars, and a little bit longer than it takes to grow a tree.
Yeah.
So and copper. So after all of the side mouth bullshit out of the Fed's mouth saying that inflation is transitory, it's like, no, it's the illusion of inflation being transitory that is transitory, because here's copper rocking its way back up to 430. Yeah, why is that? As Edward said, the lack of investment. Actually, really do have to look at a TSX venture chart to get the full appreciation of. The TSX venture chart is probably something that not a lot of you follow. Anyways, look at that. Yeah. They don't actually include the TSX venture index on TradingView.
It's showing a pretty big base. It goes back because, let's face it, commodities have been in the tank.
Yeah, well, but the point I'm trying to make here it is, TSX Venture one day. What? Basically, what the TSX Venture chart does show is, if you look here from late 2000 and call it 12 to basically 2019, it's really been moving sideways. And what that is showing you is that there's a lack of investment in new mineral exploration. When the TSX Venture is running at those lows, that's a lack of investment going into mineral exploration. So when we arrive at this new phase in the price action, technically, where there's clearly a new trend has set in, the highs are getting higher, the lows are getting higher, everybody's getting higher, the power is here. That means that the usual expected performance of supply and demand has arrived, and the lack of investment in copper inventory has resulted in a shortage of the inventory. At the same time, demand's going through the roof, so you can expect copper to go to $8 a pound, people. That's our prediction, $8 a pound within 2 years. So you heard it here first. Yeah, heard it here first, but nobody will remember. Google will make sure of that because they're basically never going to make sure we have an audience unless we do more Joe Rogan shit. Unless we can convince Google that we're actually Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan's imitating us. We're not imitating him.
Right.
Lay down.
And the other thing, when you talk about commodities, you got to talk about crude oil. Crude oil is $73. Like,
wow, crude oil. Why is crude oil crude? Like I've never. It's never sworn at me or anything.
Crude.
Yeah. Don't be so crude.
It hasn't been refined. After something's refined, it's no longer crude.
After it's been refined, is it fine?
It's fine.
It's fine.
It's fine now.
That's fine.
It wasn't fine.
How are
now
you today?
It's fine. It's refined.
How are you today?
Fine.
I'm fine. Fine. People say they're fine when they're anything but fine. And that's the great thing about psychedelics is if you're not fine, but you're telling people you're fine, that's a sign that you're not fine at all. And you need to sign on the dotted line and get into one of these programs. Get some psychedelics and be happy. Yeah.
Wowie.
Oh, yeah. No, that's why we're so happy. We're high all the time.
Yeah.
High as fuck over here. Yeah. Here's one of the companies we had on last week. After being on our show, the stock started to sell off again. That's not a good sign.
There you go.
No, the Compass Pathways, we're going to have them back. This looks like a buying opportunity in there to me.
Yeah,
this
maybe.
stock has touched a high back in December of over $60 a share. And so at $32 a share, it looks like it might be a bit of a buy. I have no stock. I'm not paid by the company. This is not biased, but I'm not qualified to give financial advice, except here's my financial advice. If you want to double your money, take it out of your pocket, fold it in half, and put it back. That's my financial advice for you. Yeah, not personalized. That's just general financial advice. Looking at the price of precious metals here.
Yeah.
Now,
little damage there to that chart.
well, you'll notice that the sell-off in precious metals sort of perversely coincides a little bit with the sell-off in commodities, even though silver and gold have monetary aspects that cryptocurrencies can only aspire to, yet cryptocurrencies reflect more of the alternative money trade currently than gold does because all of the crypto kids.
The U.S. dollar gets stronger when interest rates go up, and that's what when the Fed did their thing last week or 2 weeks ago now, it caused a little the U.S. dollar to start moving up, and that caused the gold to come down, and it's dropped about $200 from the $180 from the recent high. No,
yeah, something like that. I think it's time for us to look at the U.S. 10-year rate just to keep our thumb on the pulse of that bond yield. How about I put up the 10-year yield?
There you go.
Yeah, 148.7.
Yeah.
Still range bound from this new high. Like this is a new range in here from March to now. This has been trading in a range above $1.40 and as high as $1.76. Now, when the Fed fund rate is at 0.14 and the yield on the 10-year is at 1.7, what is that telling us about the future of money, Ed?
Well, the spread between the 2-year, 5-year, and 10-year has narrowed a bit. Like the 2 and 5-year are moving up. This is sort of holding its own, so the spread's, backing in.
So is this confidence in the future buying power of the USD, or is this a lack of confidence?
It's digesting that big move from sort of 0.6 to 1.5. It's almost a triple, and it's digesting that move, and it's slowing. It's not coming down like it went up. So,
okay. Well, I'm confused.
Well, everybody is. Everybody's confused. That's why, people like somebody like.
Our audience is confused. They've asked us some questions to limit the confusion.
Right.
Actually, they're not confused. They're pretty whip smart. Pino Kenzo Hida. Anyways, he wants us to do an interview with Benutech, which is the company that's most recently been announced as being in the process of being acquired by Voxtur Analytics. We will conduct a interview with the CEO of Benutech, Hida, as soon as that transaction closes. At this point, it's not a done deal, though it's wending its way through the process. So we'll come back to you with that one. Robert Tabor, I hope I'm saying that right. What is the implication for oil with Iran's new president-elect Ibrahim Raisi?
Well, you have to really know what this gentleman's beliefs are.
Well, he was appointed by the Ayatollah.
There you go.
So he's a fundamentalist nutcase like the rest of them. Was that a racist statement? No, I'm just saying that he's a fundamentalist
religion.
Nutcase.
Yeah, who knows?
Just for the record, all fundamentalists are nutcases. Jeez, did I just insult like 90% of our audience? Oh my gosh. No wonder we don't have numbers. Google's out there going, we don't have to do anything to destroy your audience. You just keep talking, son. Mitchell Johnson says, have you noticed that Yahoo, CNBC, CNN, and Bloomberg hate tech, even though most of us have 401k plans that have big tech, and push crypto crap?
Yeah, I don't know what the agenda is of most, I mean, look, at the end of the day, people are starting to they're jealous of Amazon, they're jealous of Google, they're jealous of Microsoft because they're the dominant companies, right?
Well, and they've made billionaires out of assholes who probably couldn't talk a nickel off a sidewalk if it weren't for all this money floating around. Yeah. Well, we'll never be invited on that show. What I would say to you, Mitchell, is that CNBC, CNN, and Bloomberg are all mainstream media sources. Mainstream media meaning all of the stories are published by journalists. Journalists aren't allowed to trade in stocks and bonds except blindly, and so therefore they have no real world experience in investing in these things. And so if you're getting your financial advice from business journalists, you are shooting yourself in the foot. If they got no skin in the game, then how are they ever going to know the pain of the deep loss?
Look, they're always moving the needle, right?
Who? What, the needle in the haystack?
Some famous investor last week said that the best value in the markets right now are in oil stocks because the prices moved up and yet the juniors aren't really. We should probably look at some.
Yeah, I would.
Except
I ordered a Tesla Cybertruck.
There you go.
So I don't need oil anymore.
You don't?
Nope. All these investing in oil and gas for me was a hedge against the amount I had to spend on gasoline. But soon everything here is going to be electric, so I won't need it.
You'll need some copper.
Well, and it's very naive. This is my sophist coming out. I also believe that, try to get away from plastic in this day and age, and plastic is a product of hydrocarbons.
You still need the oil. You still need the energy.
Well, and where do hydrocarbons come from, Ed?
The sun.
And so what is hydrocarbon in essence?
The sun.
Solar energy.
Solar energy.
So
all solar energy.
You're being green by burning oil because it's solar energy.
Yes.
This is the curious conundrum we live under.
You
boys in Alberta are jumping for joy, like, finally!
Yeah.
Finally!
Yeah.
Somebody's talking sense about the tar sands. That's not dirty. It's solar energy.
It's solar energy that's sort of,
hard to get at.
Made to look like tar.
Expensive to produce.
We want to make it look like the sun again.
Yeah, it's like Vegemite.
Light it up.
Have you ever had Vegemite on toast? The Australian dish?
Oh.
I know, hey?
Vegemite.
Like, one of the all talk like that. They're busy grimacing.
Did you ever hear they say if you take a bucket of margarine and put it in a garage,
that
insects don't come near it because it's one molecule away from plastic?
Really? Huh.
I don't know.
Herman Hurtner. Hit me with your rhythm stick. Hit me. Wants to know, what do you think about the company Reconnaissance Energy Africa Limited, ticker RECAF?
We just talked about that earlier, and I said apparently it's the most shorted company.
Yeah.
And so all these guys that are short are starting all the rumors.
Yeah.
And whether they're true or not, I don't know, except there's a lot of banter going on between management and the Globe and Mail, for instance.
Yeah, I'm trying to punch that in, but if the screen, oh, there we go. Globe and Mail reconnaissance. Now, this is interesting, and this comes back to why you should not really count on business reporting for your financial ideas. What often happens to journalists, and many times they don't recognize this is happening, though many times they do and they just pretend they don't, because a PR guy will get a hold of them and say, hey, I got a story for you, and he lays out all the points to the story, puts in all the links to back up the statements made in the presentation to the story, and basically tries to present himself as somebody who's working in PR. And so journalists like to get these pitches from PR companies every once in a while because it makes writing a story for the day very easy. So instead of 6 hours coming up with their own idea, they've got one in their inbox. It takes an hour to verify the sources. And so many times, short strategists will hire PR firms to pitch journalists to publish the downside of these companies. Right. And the Globe and Mail, I believe, just fell prey to that. A little honeypot action. Oh, here's an outline for a story for you, sir. I'm just a lowly PR guy. Yeah. Actually, I work for Carson Block and Muddy Waters, and sure, if you publish this story, you will help us profit in the billions by making the stock go down, and that's what happened. So what do I think of Reconnaissance Energy? I don't know a damn thing about the company, but I sure do know about short strategists getting journalists to write dirty on companies to sell them off cheap. So what do I think about Reconnaissance Energy? Great short. It's the most shorted stock on the TSX Venture.
Except with that kind of short position,
it's time to go long.
If the thing starts to move, it could cause a short squeeze. And maybe this is why this thing keeps moving higher.
Well, imagine if the Reddit kids got hold of this.
GME.
That's what I'm saying. AMC. What if the Wall Street's bets crews got a hold of this stock?
Yeah.
They would start buying it. These are
your basic meme stocks.
Yes, meme stocks, exactly.
Meme.
So if the crypto kids came in now and took it way higher, what do you think the billionaires would do? Laughing all the way to the bank because they're already out. The short has been done. You guys are too late. Yeah, great. Hold up a company that has no business being that high. Another just signed up.
But I don't know. This thing's capped at almost $2 billion. So $2 billion is a big number.
Yeah, and do they have any oil?
Well, they say they I don't know the fundamental side. All I know is there's this banter going on between the shorts and the longs.
I see.
And
yeah. So we don't have an opinion, to be honest. We don't have an opinion because we don't know anything about the company, but it is the target of a short strategy right now, and I'm sure you're going to find out who is written the short report that preceded this journalistic coverage. Mark my words, it's coming. And
okay.
So, Ed, do you have anything else to add? Any pearls of wisdom for everybody out there today?
Well, I got to say, it just seems to be murkier and murkier. Murkier and murkier.
Mercury and Mercury? Is that like the planet?
Mercury and monarchy.
Mercury and monarchy?
No, monarchy and Mercury.
That sounds like peanut butter. Oh, no, that's not peanut butter. That's pony butter.
How is this going to end? Everybody's just kicking the can down the road, right?
Ooh, I'm kicking the can.
And they hope that they're gone, and they go to their whatever hotel in the sky, and then we're left down here to pick up the pieces.
Just pick up the pieces of the broken people and put them back together using our psychedelics. Yes, that's why you need to stay tuned. We have decided to cover the psychedelic realm like nobody else can cover it because we do psychedelics every day. We're psychedelic right now.
Maybe the elitists of the world have figured out that if we give them enough psychedelics, they'll leave us alone and let us continue.
The elitists of the world. Well, the problem with billionaires, who are uniformly the most parasitic race on the planet, is that they're controlled by their money. So they're assholes because they've got so much money, and the money is making them do the shit that they do. They don't want to do that. They don't want to own bridges and industries. They just want to be left alone.
Yeah.
Anyways, that's our show for today. We hope you enjoyed it. This is the last time you're going to see us in this condition. I guarantee it, because next time we'll be high as fuck and acting like something completely different again.
Yep.
Thanks for watching.
Thanks for watching.
Bye.
Bye.